I don't know if y'all saw this over on ESPN, but they have talked with college football coaches on background to come up with the best players from each conference, excuse me. And like for instance, in the ACC, they've got Zay Flowers, the North Carolina quarterback, Drake May. Um, Nobody mentioned a Clemson player, which is kind of interesting. Marvin Harrison Jr. was the guy, in the Big Ten, which I don't think is really much of a surprise here. I think it's Bijan Robinson at Texas in the Big 12. But what about the SEC? It's kind of curious. I'm just going to read what they said here. It says after Georgia's first national championship in 41 years, the spotlight continued to be on the SEC East for much of the season. Georgia continued to win, and Tennessee broke through behind an incredible offense. Southeastern Conference coaches recognized players on both teams. Georgia tight end Brock Bowers and quarterback Stetson Bennett were listed on several responses. Here's what they say. Brock Bowers is a special player. He's different. Woo. Brock Bowers is a special player. He's different, a defensive coordinator said. And I'm assuming this is the same defense coordinator. Goes on to say Stetson Bennett never gets enough credit. That kid has been so efficient in what he does. Uh, Folks went on to talk about Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, saying one defensive coordinator saying that Hooker, quote, has been tough to manage, and all the and he has to be tough and manage all the quarterback run game for when things break down. And I just thought it was kind of curious. Another guy that was mentioned was Broderick Jones. And that Broderick Jones was talked about, as was Jalen Carter, which I don't see how you could really skip him. One assistant called him a dominating player, saying when he wants to play hard, he is a top five pick and dominates games. I think that defensive linemen often get that stereotype, I guess you could say, about when they want to play hard. Jalen, not to make excuses for him, Jalen most of this season has been quite hurt, and I think he might be the overall best player. If the playoff were today, he might be the best player in the playoff if USC and company were involved. Hey, listen, we've got something very rare here. Kelee Ringo-Signed. DAWGSTRUCTIONs. Obviously, Kelee on the card. Got to quit hitting this like that. Sorry about that. I don't send those away to people. I've been keeping them there for a long time because I reference them, but I should stop doing that with the signed ones. But we've got a limited edition number. Well, it's not a limited edition. We just have a limited number of them. So make sure you're picking them up down below. People have been buying these in a steady fashion. I hope to not run out before Christmas, but my suspicion is it's going to be really tight. So get them now. Don't wait until the Christmas push. Y'all know I get them out quick. So if you want anything extra, like someone ordered earlier today and wanted me to sign it, you need to email me immediately because I often turn these around in the afternoon at the post office. So thanks for watching on that front. I think, I'm not going to get into a Stetson Bennett debate about what he's, done or not done. He's been very good this season. I think these last couple of games for Stetson, it's not been as well as he needs to play in the playoff. But I do think there's sort of so much Stetson hate that it kind of doesn't mirror reality. He's had 6 interceptions this season, 3,100 yards, almost 3,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But lately, he's not been as effective. 140 yards throwing against Georgia Tech, 116 against Kentucky. Those are his lowest numbers since the 2021 season. I mean, so he has kind of slowed down. But as I've said in the past, we're in Stetson season. It's time, and he's only had 190 yards rushing this year, but he's deadly with his feet. I think we'll see a little bit more of that. In terms of Brock Bowers, I certainly would like to see more of Brock getting touches Against Georgia Tech, he had 7 touches for 24 total yards. One of those was a touchdown, of course, from a not great throw from Stetson. But against Kentucky, only 2 catches, which is fine. But Brock in a normal game, you're looking at somewhere around 4 or 5 catches and maybe a run or 2. And I think that's the part to me that is so deadly about Georgia. They have all these weapons, and right now they're not playing the way they can. Uh, but I think that they're there's just no telling when they're going to explode. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in an appropriate way. I mean this team has played well, but it can play better, and I expect it to starting Saturday. Hey, by the way, if you're in Athens, our friends at Red Zone have this shirt right here, Nowhere to Run, Nowhere to Hide, talking about the Tennessee game. You get that for free if you go in there and buy your copy of DAWGSTRUCTION, like you want to get multiple copies, something like that. I don't know if they have any signed copies from me. They do not have any of Kelee yet that are in there. But go in there and you want to check that out. They've got Nowhere to Run, Nowhere to Hide shirts. You can get them in your size. Obviously, they've been very good to us over this time. I'm wondering too. These last 2 games, Georgia has not been great, right? Offensively, 37 points, 16 points. The 16 points against Kentucky, it really is difficult to play in weather like that. It was not great to play in weather like that against Mississippi State, but they still managed 45 points. You look at all the games besides those 2 games and the Missouri game, and Georgia's really been where you want to be on offense. 49 against Oregon, 33 against Samford. South Carolina, they scored 48. 39 against Kent State. Obviously, we talked about the Mizzou game where they scored 26, which is not nothing. 42 against Auburn, 55 against Vandy, 42 against Florida. 27, it starts raining, they shut it down. 45 against State. So I do get it. I mean, like, you want to play your best football coming into the most important part of the season. And I think it was after the Kentucky game, Kirby talked about how Georgia was playing and they were ascendant. I think it was Kentucky or Mississippi State. I can't remember. Y'all, this season has been so long I can barely remember anything. But it was one of those 2 games. It was not a Tennessee game. Obviously, Georgia played really well against Tennessee. I mean, I don't think it was unbelievable, but it was really well. And you can't be nonstop all the time. And to prove that point, I'm going to look at USC's numbers this year. And my Google machine always pops up South Carolina. But anyway, this season, you could see from the start that SC could really do some damage because in their first 2 games, they scored 107 points. So 66 against Rice and then 41 against Samford. 45 against Fresno. Then they had to gut it out against Oregon State. I stayed up late for that game. I love these cheap, easy games at night on the West Coast, man. They are my favorite thing almost in life. I'm not even joking. And they gutted that game out. They probably should have lost to Oregon State, just being straight up. But they won it 17-14. They gutted it out in the 4th quarter. They were losing in the 4th quarter, if memory serves correct. Yeah, they scored 14 points in the 4th quarter. So they were at least losing 7-3, whatever the score was in the 4th, but they were losing. And of course, they handled Arizona State. They beat Washington State. They lost to Utah on that last play of the game, and 45 points against 42 against Utah. SC scores 45, 41 against Cal, 55 against Colorado, 48 against UCLA, 38 against Notre Dame. I think the thing that stands out here is, the amount of points that they're allowing. It's quite a bit. Stanford 28. That's a lot for not a very good Stanford team. 43 to Utah, 37 to Arizona, 35 to Cal. Cal is not good. UCLA with 45, Notre Dame with 27. So the defense is a concern, I think, for USC. And their out of conference was Rice, Fresno, and Notre Dame. So we don't really have a great, just like Georgia. Georgia plays two out of conferences that matter, and I think they played better in their out of conferences against Georgia Tech and Oregon. But I think you saw with SC there. If you did the same thing with Michigan, who I think is the second best team in the country, um, they did. There were times when Michigan had to kind of grind it out too. Obviously, the win over Illinois was way more of a fight than it probably should have been. And then their game against Maryland at home, where they only won by 7 points. So you're not going to every single week play at your tip top, but it is time for the Dogs to do that. And I just thought it was curious to see those two assistant coaches and defensive coordinators and so forth talk about Jalen, Stetson, Broderick Jones, and then Brock Bowers, the secret weapon. What's it going to be like as Georgia moves forward here? I anticipate they're going to play better, but I've got to tell you, it's time, because it is time to start playing better. Hey, take advantage of those offers, and we'll see you on the website. Thanks for watching.